chew bubble gum, and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept you seated. It's great to see you back. Today is Tuesday. It's September 12th, one day after September 11th, a day that will live in infamy. Year of our Lord 2017. I think Flackbait, well, I don't think I know Flackbait. He's going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted. It's to my left, your right. If you happen to be listening, or watching, rather, on YouTube. And do you want to know how to do that? Of course you do. Go to YouTube, or go to your favorite search engine. Go to the SHR Media channel on YouTube, and you'll be watching the Saloon live, or you can go to Spreaker, or you can go to the High Plains Pundit website, courtesy of Dan Butcher, or you can go to shrmedia.com, click Live Now, and boom, quick like a bunny, you'll be in and listening, and you can go directly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200, except maybe a couple of EBT cards, and you'll be listening to the show live right now, and you'll be involved in chat, because we certainly invite and ask everyone all across the fruited plain to come in to chat itself. Funny thing, in chat right now we have Jersey Joe. Thank goodness he's doing well. We have Whiskey Dale, a defector from the Hugh Hewitt Show. Evil Whiskey Dale. Good to see you here, WD. Mary Brockman, who's sitting now in her chair. You can always tell it belongs to Mary Brockman because it has a name embroidered on the back of the chair. And we have one viewer. Oh, and we have Mike. Mike, welcome to you, Mike. So good to hear. This is not going to be the downer show that it was last Thursday. Some various and sundry not-so-good things occurred last Thursday. The funeral for one of my deputies, Bob French, occurred last Thursday. I apologize to those. It was, in fact, kind of a downer show. I had some very serious things to get out. And then, unfortunately, literally, I found out it was occurring at the exact same time that Deputy Bob French's funeral was occurring. 2 Sacramento Police Department officers were shot in the city of Sacramento limits by a murder suspect who was wanted in the killings of 2 women, a mother and a daughter. And he was subsequently shot and killed. And if you're interested, both the officers on that are going to recover. So that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of good things, I have a good thing to talk about now.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
I'll go into it more on Thursday, but at least at this point you should know that the full Supreme Court temporarily preserves Trump's travel ban. Excellent news as far as I am concerned. This is from the WashingtonFreeBeacon.com. The full Supreme Court concurred with Justice Anthony Kennedy Tuesday, overturning a lower court's limits on the Trump administration's travel ban. The court issued a 1-paragraph summary statement late Tuesday evening, just a few hours ago, as a matter of fact, overturning a ruling from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I'm sorry, I can't help but do this. That's not very mature of me. The Washington Post reports Tuesday's ruling concurred with the preliminary ruling issued to Justice Anthony Kennedy on Monday evening. Kennedy's ruling was also summary. Neither offered reasoning to the decision, although this is not an abnormal practice. Again, I found some people to weigh in on this. You know me and Judge Napolitano. I've got a nice cut from him weighing in on this and a few other things. So at least I get to start the show in something of a positive note until I realize that I have to say something about 9/11. I don't normally say much about 9/11. This time I felt it necessary to do it. I happened to watch a show, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, one of the two. And it was something similar to 102 Minutes. And it was an excellent recounting, essentially minute by minute, of the time leading up to the falling of the towers and beyond. And beyond it was. It was one of the finest documentaries I'd seen in quite some time. And it did some things. And the reason I'm going to go here with 9/11 is there are some things that we do indeed need not forget. We shouldn't forget. And unfortunately, in my opinion, way too many videos, way too many resources, media resources, gloss over the horrible events of that particular day. That documentary did the exact same thing. It glossed over what I considered to be the human elements, but the human elements in not a way that you would think of. And I made a post of this, and I said, 9/11.
Perfect, almost achingly beautiful late summer morning in early September 2000.
The difficult truth of 9/11. And the truth of 9/11 is, in fact, difficult. So I asked, where is the reality, the truth of what actually occurred on September 11th of 2001? And so since that fateful Tuesday, I've said many times that we, Americans, need to see and remember what really happened to the occupants of the Twin Towers. Now, I can tell you that I was excoriated on social media and sent a number of emails after I published this on September 11th, yesterday. To those people who thought I ought not to go there, I had bad words to say initially, but the truth is I couldn't care less what you think, because I'm going to go through this. People need to see it. Go to the blog now if you're interested, because there are some very difficult photos for you to see. If you're not in the mood, pass it by. It's like a radio. If you don't like what you hear, turn it off. But I'm going to go over it anyway, because in my opinion, we gloss over way, way too much. We need to see and hear and read and understand what truly transpired with the lives of those people who were killed that day. Because most of those people, these real-life sights and sounds, have been sanitized and scrubbed from the media because we find such things too disturbing as Americans, too graphic, our little dainty sensibilities. We might become offended in some way. And to that I reply, I don't really much care. I don't really much care at all. Ladies and gentlemen,
It's 8:46 in the morning.
I am here to offend.
Stopped even resembling an
I am pushback. I am here to remind you in stark graphic detail, color, and description. Listen. I am pushback. I'm here to remind you in very stark, very gravid detail, color, and description. I couldn't care less if you're a snowflake. I'm here to show you on the blog the 9/11 jumpers and the decisions that they had to make that day. And obviously you can't see them here, but here's what happened, because I did the mathematics. Here's what happened to the jumpers and those still trapped within the Twin Towers. 1 million tons, 2 billion pounds of concrete and steel fell down upon citizens of the United States of America, turning human tissue to liquid and leaving most of them, with no way of being identified whatsoever. The science of falling human flesh indicates that an average 200-pound human being, I found out, with air resistance, will eventually reach a terminal velocity of about 195 kilometers per hour or 122 miles an hour. Now, the Twin Towers were 1,362 feet tall. We know that 99% of the terminal velocity for a human will be reached at around, 1,800 feet. Since we also know that Americans did not jump from the top of the buildings, but instead some stories down, it would be scientifically safe to posit that jumpers reached between, say, 100 and 110 miles an hour at the point of impact, with metal or concrete below. You can imagine what that would look like. But here's a serious, common misconception, is that many died mid-jump. No, that's incorrect. The bulk died upon impact. Only those who were already suffering from, let's say, traumatic burns or egregious wounds may, and I say may, have died en route to impact sites. For most, at their velocities they had, I finally realized, they had a full 10 to 14 seconds to impact. Almost all were completely conscious, and if their eyes were open, they would have seen the World Trade Center become rapidly smaller. And if they were on their backs, shockingly larger. If they were on their stomachs, not unlike a skydiver. Some may have even had their eyes open upon impact. Some may actually have had the rush of air resistance physically rip pieces of burned flesh and clothing from their bodies as they fell. You're an employee within the World Trade Center that day. You would not know what was happening to you, as we know today in hindsight. You would be confused. You would be in panic mode. You would either have survived or, trapped on certain floors with others, you would have been attempting to locate a way out. You could have been splashed with Jet A fuel. Jet A fuel powers modern commercial airliners, and it's a mix of pure kerosene and antifreeze, and set ablaze immediately. Or you could have been surrounded by burning objects and left with only one possible exit strategy. Try to somehow knock out a window to the outside world, and it only goes one place. Knowing as we do, the fire triangle, that's to say, combustion requires oxygen, heat, and fuel. We know that when persons trapped in the World Trade Center even managed to break open the windows, the resultant air flow would have enabled flames to burn even hotter by enriching the oxygen content. So now you have a choice. Try to imagine. Here's your choice. You can burn to death via the flames behind you, or you can knock out a window. If you fail to knock out a window, yes, you burn to death. If you knock out a window or locate a window aperture already damaged, you have time to contemplate. Maybe a few minutes, maybe a few seconds. To the worst of them, they had 15, 20 minutes to think about what they were eventually going to have to do. Do you turn to face the flames? Do you seek the very thing that keeps you alive and has done so for years? The open air? Perhaps now. The flames They're right there. They're licking at your back. You've seen some of your friends, perhaps people you don't even know, step right out into the abyss. Their choices have been made for them. Again, your choice. Do I burn to death, or do I simply jump? And with that, you recognize with finality, this is going to be the sum total of your life. Here is how and where you end. You did what you did. You loved who you loved. You accompanied what you accomplished, only to have your life reach this point right here. And you have to say, I'm going to choose death. Either way. Your brain sees and twists things your entire life, years into a few seconds. The lizard brain rules. Survival. Only this time, survival equals death. Either way, you lose. Your brain asks, how did I get here? It doesn't matter. You're here now. So, right in front of you, there's an open portal. The air is rushing past you because the broken World Trade Center window on this perfect day, this blue sky, this day without clouds, this day that embraces you and now somehow beckons. You see momentarily the land and the sea. You can see out to the ocean before and below, and the seemingly strong winds blow what hair you may have left if it isn't already burned off. Some people wish they could have opened a window for fresh ventilation at the World Trade Center. You may have been one of those, but now you wish, your wish, is not to have been anywhere near an open window at this juncture, except that now, maybe, the clothing on your back is on fire. So now you have a choice. Turn or go forward. You go forward. And then, 10 seconds later, you were conscious, then you die. Oh, that's not the worst part. Then billions of pounds collapse down upon you. On Tuesday, September 11th of 2001. But if that offense isn't enough, oh, but wait, there's more. There are people who made videos like this and took everything that you sacrificed and all your deaths and made fun of them because that was...
Take a look at this rare, super slow motion video of Flight 175 that hit the South World Trade Center Tower on 9/11/2001. Take a really close look.
Right, I wonder where you're going with this.
Because there are two impossibilities I'm going to show you here. This video was allegedly shot by Michael Herzakani, a diamond merchant based in Los Angeles, California.
Two impossibilities, he says. Well, he must be a structural engineer.
The first impossibility is a real airplane couldn't have sliced through a building with a steel facade with reinforced concrete flooring and 47 steel support beams. A jet's wing can't slice through a steel building like a hot knife through butter.
Really, obviously, a structural engineer. Well, I've had enough of his bullshit, but wait. Oh, there's more. If you think these people didn't come out of the woodwork with their conspiracy theories because of 9/11, oh, you haven't heard a fraction of it. Not a fraction.
9/11 was a gigantic psyops against the American people. Part of the psyops was the jumpers. This particular photo appeared on just about every newspaper, every magazine on September 12th.
So this American is attempting to say that the deaths of all those people who jumped out the window, well, I guess you really didn't do that, did you?
It was all over the world. But take a look at what happens. When you blow it up, it's a cut and paste.
And she knows that, right? It's a cut and paste. Oh, well, you can listen to the rest 5 minutes of that and whatever. So I guess when you died and your friends and your loved ones, your wives and your husbands, when they died and they were turned to liquid under the massive rubble of the World Trade Center towers, or they impacted at about 100 to 105 miles an hour, I guess in some people's world, that really didn't occur. And when you think about it, how incredibly sad is that? Perhaps about as sad as this. Now we find out the Federal Election Commission wants to remove your freedoms. Again, gosh, because this sounds familiar. Didn't this happen once before? This attempt? Well, yes, it certainly did. But first, here's the article from the WashingtonExaminer.com. FEC Dems renew bid to regulate Internet drudge. Not done fighting, they say. They've repeatedly tried and failed to impose regulations on Internet political communications, possibly even media sites like the Drudge Report. But congressional testimony that unnamed Russians spent $100,000 for politically themed ads on Facebook is sparking a new bid by Democrats in the Federal Election Commission. Already. Stop. Do any one of these fuckalicious fucktards realize on the left that the Drudge Report does not write fresh content? Apparently, they do not. The Drudge Report is what we call an aggregator. It takes media stories from all across the world and arranges them and writes a new headline, a catchy headline, for each article. So would it shock you to know that the Drudge Report does, in fact, feature articles from such leftist organs as the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, et al., etc., Sacramento Bee, fill in your wonderful leftist newspaper. The Drudge Report, Matt Drudge, seldom writes anything anymore. All he is an aggregator of information, and yet he is reviled because he uses left-wing sources for articles. That's how stupid this is. You say the U.S. government has tried on prior occasions to censor the Drudge Report. Well, yeah, by the FCC. Now, I wrote back on May 5th of 2015, and I wrote again on August 24th of 2015 about the FCC doing that. But the FEC, which is the Federal Election Commission, and the FCC is the Federal Communications Commission, but the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, specifically tried back in 2014 to do exactly the same thing that they're trying again. Back in 2014, the headline read, FEC chair warns that conservative media like Drudge Report and Sean Hannity face regulation like PACs. Government officials, PAC, Political Action Committee. Government officials reacting to the growing voice of conservative news outlets, especially on the internet, angling to curtail the media's exemption from federal election laws governing a political organization, a potentially chilling intervention that the chairman of the Federal Election Commission is vowing to fight. Now, that was the FEC chairman under who? Well, yes, that would be Barack Hussein Obama. So what's the real truth behind this? What's the real motivation? It's no more complicated than this. The right has begun to break the left's media monopoly, particularly through new media outlets like the internet. And I sense that some on the left are starting to rethink the breadth of the media exemption and the internet communications. Okay, so here's what's really happening, and always have your radar on, as I do, when this comes up. Because that's this. And you already fundamentally know it, my dearest listeners and observers on YouTube. When you can't win the war of ideas, that's to say the message, then your only alternative is to shut down the messenger, right? Which in these cases translates to the internet itself. And some sites specifically like Drudge. Well, guess what? When he falls, who's next? Oh, that's right, my site, and your site, and your ability to write what you believe. So FEC Chairman Lee Goodman added, truth be told, I want conservative media to have the same exemptions as all other media. And that translates, oh, by the way, he's the only Republican on the FEC. That's called a clue. But that translates to, as I've said for quite some time, and I said this, who did I say this last to? Oh, I said this to Melanie. I said this to Melanie Collette, and we're going to hear a great story, by the way, later. I told you on Tuesday that last Thursday, that I'm going to read this story that Melanie wrote. It is absolutely knockdown, drag-out, exquisite. You're really going to enjoy this after the break, of course. But I've said for quite some time, and I said it to her, no one is equal until everyone is equal. And I'd say that this sums things up quite nicely in terms of history.
Scott just made the point
For the First Amendment guards, and yes, this is a First Amendment right with regard to free
Federal
speech.
Elections Commission Vice Chair Ann M. Revelle says it's time to end the Internet's free ride when it comes to campaign ads and regulate them on the Internet just like they already are on your local TV station. Now, is this an idea whose time has come, or is it yet another ploy to stifle free speech?
Gosh, I wonder what you think.
I'm Steve Green, this is Trifecta, and with me now the rest of your Trifecta crew, Scott Ott and Bill Whittle. Gents, back in 2006, the FEC exempted...
By the way, folks, if you haven't read Bill Whittle, W-H-I-T-T-L-E, he is a wonder to behold.
Free internet sites like Mind at Vodka Planet or Scrapple Face or Eject, or even Daily Kos exempted them from the rules and that the TV and radio stations or even paid sites already play by. So late on Friday, Ann Revelle released a memo outlining her plans for taking these existing rules and implementing them more widely. Here's what she wrote. She said the commission failed to take into account clear indicators that the internet would become a major source of political advertising dominated by the same political organizations that dominate traditional media. Since its inception, this effort to protect individual bloggers and online commenters has been stretched to cover slickly produced ads aired solely on the internet, but
solely on the internet, that evil internet.
Paid for by the same organizations and the same large contributors as the actual ads aired on TV. Now, Scott, as a rule of law conservative, don't you agree that bloggers should have to play by the same rules as everybody else, especially when it comes to expensive ads produced by organizations founded by, well, say, the Koch brothers?
Right, like those expensive ads on the bloviating Zeppelin. You know, that's obviously why you come here, to listen to my expensive ads. Sure you do. Okay, folks, it's the end of the first segment. Damn, that went fast. Sorry to bum me out at the beginning, but when people go stupid places and don't want to consider reality, tell you what, I'll do it for you. Please, come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Breaking news. According to the latest report coming out of SHR Media, a merchandise store to support both the Reaver of Common Sense and SHR Media has just been unleashed to the general public. Be forewarned that this site can be contagious and numerous items can be purchased to support the best news programming. Go to Reaver.one website and click on the store link to check out the merchandise.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College.
Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch the Reaver of Common Sense show, hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com and highplainsdailynews.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else, so consider this your fair warning.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct from BZ Sierra Nevada Airy in occupied California, doing the job the American media maggots won't, featuring right thinking from a left brain, working without a net and under an assassination order. Here is the bloviating Zeppelin.
Welcome back. That was the first segment. It's the bottom of the hour. On the left coast, it's 9:30, what the hell, 9:33. On the right coast, it's 12:33. And Bolivia, I think it's 17:85 and 126 seconds, or thereabouts. We were talking about the FEC trying to regulate again what tried in 2014, and it's trying again. It thinks it'd be a great thing to regulate the internet because, oh no, people have opinions about politics on the internet. How sad. How shocking. But wait, doesn't that apply both ways? Can't anyone get on the internet? Well, that might be true, right?
Well, to tell you the truth, I was all for the heavy regulation of political advertising as long as I was exempted. I mean, it just seemed right to impose that kind of regulation on other people. But now that they're trying to put it on me, I've come to a different view suddenly. You know, here's my view on this is actually they shouldn't regulate any of it.
Period. Thank you. End of statement. It's unnecessary. Why? Because there are so many more different forms of media, places that people can go.
It should be free speech. And if somebody wants to get on TV and lie their tail off, they should get on TV and lie their tail off and face the consequences for that. The great thing about the internet age is that we have fact-checking out the wazoo now being done by people who used to be considered rank amateurs, but who actually have more expertise than most people in the mainstream media do, or at least collectively we do. So,
and where are those fact-checkers? Oh, that's right. At this point, a lot of those fact-checkers are on the left side of the aisle.
I'd say let politicians say what they will and let the market sort it out instead of the government trying to come up with, the latest regulation that will, it'll be like campaign finance reform. The moment they put this regulation in place, somebody will figure out a way to go around it and do something else. It's absurd.
It is absurd, but guess what? All that crap rolls downhill. And if they do decide that they're going to do this, eventually it's going to roll downhill to me and you. Oh, but it won't stop there. It'll also move over to social media. If you think you're repressed now because you're a conservative, oh, wait. You haven't seen accounts moved and removed like you would see if this really gains any steam. So you can already see that leftist social media giants, they're already shutting down free speech. But wait, again, whose free speech? Well, those on the right. Leftist speech remains predominantly uninterrupted, undisturbed, and inviolate unless it is so absolutely shockingly egregious that even the American media maggots begin to notice, they start to notice a little bit, even then, not consistently. Death threats against President Trump on Twitter, for example, tend to remain unless they're somehow brought to light, and I mean massive light. And don't forget about this aspect as well. Liberals over the years have also pushed for a change in the Federal Communications Commission fairness doctrine to cut off conservative voices. And retired Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens has delighted Democrats recently with a proposed constitutional amendment that some say could force the media to stop endorsing candidates or promoting issues. See, at one point, this fairness doctrine, which is the precise opposite, of course, ruled in media. Its attempt originally was to kind of ensure some semblance of fairness in broadcasting when media choices, and this is the key, when media choices were extremely limited, the exact opposite of today. When I was a little kid, what did we have for media? We had three. Just kind of like the UK had BBC 1, 2, and 3. We had ABC, CBS, and NBC, and that's all there was. Now, just those three, their power has so terribly diminished, it's not even funny because there are so many multiple sources of media that you can connect with at every point. And so it is the precise opposite today. I got to tell you this in regards to the FEC. I value two things primarily: honesty and clarity. I tell this to all the people that I interview when I get authors on, or people that I haven't spoken to before. And so let's be clear. The only reason the FEC or the FCC want to limit and regulate speech under the guise of, fairness, air quotes, or equanimity, air quotes, is to limit the speech of only one side, the conservative side, to limit the dissemination of information which truly, thusly, informs voters and allows conservatives to acquire facts, data, and particulars on political issues. Because, trust me, oh my God, after all, everything is political now. But I'm going to throw this point out to you also, because this in particular irritates. We know this is an issue, and the people in politics know this is an issue. It was an issue in 2014. It was an issue earlier. At one point, the United States was thinking about, this was like 2005. Some people were suggesting you should have a license to blog. At one point, I almost needed a license to blog. I'll wager you never heard about that. But the point is this. Okay, where are the Republicans on this? Why no public GOP umbrage over this issue? Statements, decisions to oppose, Republicans taking a stand on this. I'm saying that's another reason conservative trust in the GOP has almost vanished. And I say that's not too damn difficult to figure out. If you'd been watching some of the promos for this show, I depicted this as the racist, leftist insanity show today. So I'm bringing all the buttery political racism and insanity right to your doorstep, right to your very ossicles if you've clapped on headphones like I have. And perhaps you heard about this and perhaps you didn't. But this makes a wonderful segue into an article that I really want to go to, but this needs to be heard first. And if you're on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you can also watch it. And did you know that Black Lives Matter, the organization, officially had a set of demands? And so, if this isn't a call for reparations, I don't know what is. Just short of a blatant shakedown for cash, which it is. This came from the dailywire.com. Black Lives Matter leader pens list of demands for white people. Yes, a list of demands, but just for white people and no one else. A Black Lives Matter leader from Louisville, Kentucky, or as they say in Kentucky, Louisville, is demanding white people pay. Oh, wait, I did mention money, didn't I? I did mention reparations, didn't I? Is demanding white people pay for their inherent sin of being white by adhering to a 10-point list of demands, which includes small gestures like giving up your home and leaving your property to a minority family when you die. So before I waste too much space and ignore my cogent, devoted, and salient listeners, I'll reveal my most immediate and pertinent response up front. No. Or perhaps go to hell. I think that's succinct, and it's honest, and it's clear. Oh, why, BZ? Why? Well, guess what? My forebears fought and died for the blue. They were Yankees. I have a picture on my blog of one of my Yankee relatives who happened to fight for the blue on my father's side. Continuing with the article, Chanel Helm, the co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Louisville, penned the list of radical demands in Leo Weekly following the rally-turned-fatal riot in Charlottesville, Virginia. Okay, so what are those demands? They're very specific. Let's do the logical thing. Let's list them in order. And what might they be? Have you heard them specifically? Well, I have them, all 10 of them. Hope you're sitting down. And they all pretty much start like this. White people. White people. If you don't have any descendants, will your property to a black or brown family, preferably one that lives in generational poverty. Wait, how did they get to be in generational poverty? That's a real nut scratcher. Number 2, white people. If you're inheriting property you intend to sell upon acceptance, give it to a black or brown family. You're bound to make that money in some other white privileged way. Woohoo! Number 3. If you were a developer or realty owner of a multifamily housing, build a sustainable complex in a black or brown blighted neighborhood and let black or brown people live in it for free. Oh, what they could have said but didn't, I don't know why it didn't occur to them, pay them to live in it. Not just give it to them for free, but then pay them to live in it. Damn, see, they can't think of everything. Number 4, white people. If you can afford to downsize, give up the home you own to a black or brown family, preferably a family from generational poverty. Oh, how'd they get there into generational poverty? That's a story for another day. Oh, maybe a movie by Dinesh D'Souza about the Democrats. Number 5, white people. If any of the people you intend to leave your property to are racists, assholes, change the will and will your property to a black or brown family, preferably a family from, you guessed it, generational poverty. Number 6, white people. Rebudget your monthly so you can donate to black funds for land purchasing. Number 7, white people. Ooh, especially white women, because this is a yaw specialty. Nosy Jenny and meddling Kathy. Get a racist fired. You know what the fuck they be saying. Now, I'm reading literally from these 10 points. Y'all know what the fuck they be saying. You are complicit when you ignore them. Get your boss fired because they racist too. 8. Backing up number 7. This should be easy, but all those sheetless Klan Nazis and other lil white dick men will all be returning to work. Get they ass fired. Call the police even. They look suspicious. Number 9. Okay, backing up number 8. If any white person at your work or as you enter in spaces and you overhear a white person praising the actions from yesterday, okay, meaning Charlottesville, first, get a pic. Get their name and more info. Hell, find out where they work. Get them fired. But certainly address them, and if you need to, you got hands, use them. I wonder what they mean by that. Oh, that's not an advocacy in any fashion for violence, is it? Nah, come on. Number 10, commit to 2 things. Fighting white supremacy where and how you can. This doesn't mean taking up knitting unless you're making scarves for black and brown kids in need, and funding black and brown people and their work. There you go. Issues number 1 through 10, BLM, Black Lives Matter's demands for white people. My first thought was, however, that ebonics are so yesterday, okay? Learn how to write and speak actual English. It's the common language of air traffic controllers around the globe. You might try taking that as a veritable clue. And you know what? I'm not making this up. So why mention male penis size unless it's an issue in and of itself? I wonder what leftists and feminists and anarchists and transgenders would think of that. Again, I have a quite easy and ready reply, and that's this. 1 through 10 equals no. Not just regular no, but sort of an extra crispy no. With this loving suggestion, try turning that fierce judgment inwards and try to examine just why such a select few of you are such foaming, despicable racists yourselves. And with this addendum, you know, nothing like a racist black female to cap off a blog post. And this is from Fox News. You may have already heard of this. Oh, wait until you hear the cut. I've got a great audio cut coming up. Oh, this show it's going to get better. Trust me, it's going to get better. Here's the headline. Missouri senator who urged Trump assassination booted from committee. Oh, did you hear that she's a black female? Sorry might not cut it for the Missouri lawmaker who called for President Trump's assassination. Missouri Senate leaders announced Tuesday, that was a couple of weeks ago, by the way, that Democrat State Senator Maria Chappelle Nadal has been stripped of her committee assignments just 2 days after she tried to calm the controversy with a public apology. She meant it. But she didn't really meant it because now she's been caught, and she thought nobody would hold her feet to the flames, except that apparently they did. Meanwhile, the state's Republican Lieutenant Governor Mike Parson on Tuesday called for the Senate to go into special session to expel Chappelle Nadal from the body. I do not make this request of you lightly, but you and I know it's the right course of action to take for the people of Missouri, Parson wrote in a letter to members of the Missouri Senate that obviously, this guy's a racist. You cannot have a lieutenant governor, especially a Republican lieutenant governor, calling for the removal of a black female. It's all President Trump's fault. Look, you know it and I know it. It's all about the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. Now, I promised you an audio cut, did I not? I'm pretty sure
we wouldn't,
that
as
I
a
did.
movement, take a seat at the table with Trump because we wouldn't have done that with Hitler. Trump is literally the epitome of evil. All the evils of this country, be it racism, capitalism, sexism, homophobia. And he has set out some of the most dangerous policies, not just that impacts this country, but impacts the globe. And so for us, the answer is not to sit with Trump, but to resist him and to resist every single policy that he's implemented that impacts our communities. And I think if I'm thinking about what I want my children to know in 34.
By the way, this is the BLM co-founder that we were talking about, the Black Lives Matter co-founder.
50 years, I want them to know that I resisted a president at all costs because this president literally tried to kill our community.
Donald Trump is responsible for trying to kill blacks. Period. It's a pogrom going on. So where do I keep finding these strikingly racist black females? Oh, that's right. This is grand. Again, another reason I love the internet. I find this shite on their own blogs and the social media splayed across the universe for all to see, and people, I guess, just think that they're never going to be called on it. We all know, though, finally, that Trump is, of course, the Antichrist. He's responsible for every planet in disarray beyond any sphere. He clearly forced somehow these women to be the most insanely stupid and racist versions of themselves whatsoever, unless that's their sort of natural state. But wait, now we're going to get to the good part, and I think I'm going to have time to do it before the top of the hour break. This is an article by Melanie Collette, and she has a great show here on SHR Media Network, Monday through Friday, Money Talk with Melanie. But she wrote this in Politichicks.com. And the headline is this: Melanie Collette, blacks bringing back segregation to America. Are they the new racists of the 21st century? And she writes, there is a hateful and racist trend growing in America, and it is not whites who are perpetrating it, it's blacks. African American history in the United States is marred by slavery, segregation, and racism. Now blacks are actually doing the bidding of their oppressors, and the results are unfortunate. Self-segregation in black culture in America is becoming a widespread practice, and it needs to stop. What is most insidious about this growing practice is its claim of promoting equality. Many of today's leftists do not remember this, but perhaps they should crack open a history book. There was a time in this country where everything was, quote, separate but equal, unquote. However, a Supreme Court case that too many leftist blacks have never heard of, called Brown versus the Board of Education, declared that having separate schools for whites and blacks was unconstitutional. Whose idea was it that blacks and whites should have different accommodations? Racist white people. It turns out the equal part of the separate but equal requirement was woefully lacking. So now we fast forward to 2017, and what do we have? Blacks are demanding separate accommodations from whites. They want their own, air quotes, safe spaces, out of the view of other races and, air quotes, blacks-only days at colleges. And at Harvard University, black students raise their own money to hold a blacks-only graduation in addition to the regular graduation. They honestly believe they are special simply because they're black and have earned a college degree. Well, the saddest part about this and other blacks-only graduations spreading up all around the country is that they are feeding into the racist narrative that they are less than their white counterparts. Either you're equal or you're not. Stop. Hey, have you heard this before? I know Melanie has on my show when I spoke to her. No one is equal until everyone is equal. She continues, a blacks-only graduation says, quote, I had more challenges and more struggles than my white counterparts, so I deserve an additional special ceremony for accomplishing the same goal. Really? If you're a black Harvard grad with no financial challenges, did you have it worse than the white or Asian student that struggled financially during college? The biggest proponent of this new type of racism and separatist behavior, stop. Do you imagine what an amazing statement that is for Melanie Collette to make? I told you I value two things, honesty and clarity. This article is dripping with both. And I don't know, I haven't spoken to her about this specific article, but my guess would be she took an arseload of shite for writing this. The biggest proponent of this new type of racism and separatist behavior is Black Lives Matter, BLM, who had the audacity to hold a blacks-only Memorial Day party in New York City, barring non-blacks from attending. This same organization holds black-only meetings in Philadelphia. The fact of the matter is, proponents of this separatist agenda do not want equality. Let's at least have some intellectual integrity here and stop calling it equality. BLM and those who think like them are racists who want retribution for perceived racial wrongs, parenthesis, the bold-faced, hands up, don't shoot, lie in the Michael Brown case comes to mind, end of parenthesis. And here's her final paragraph. What these people are doing is dangerous and wrong. BLM and their kind are taking blacks backwards to a time when segregation was legal and just as hateful. There's no such thing as a good version of racism. Pray, turn back now before it's too late. That was an exquisite article written by Melanie Collette. And if you want to go and see it, or you want to go to the website itself, this is from Politichicks. That's Politichicks, just like it sounds, one word, politichicks.com. And you'll see material just like this. I have to hand it to Melanie. I haven't heard, and next time she's on, I'm going to talk to her about it. My guess would be that she received a lot of crap when that was published on social media, everywhere, absolutely everywhere. Now you see leftist platforms like Facebook and Twitter, they would allow all of that to go and be pointed at Melanie Collette because she's not towing the line. Well, you can't say she's an Uncle Tom, per se. And many of these people, would they perceive that she's an uncle or an Aunt Thomasina? Folks, hang tight. We're going to be back in about 3 more minutes. And oh, if you think that was good, I think I've got some more just for you. Here on the SHR Media Network, you're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying Catholic, stupid.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Doing the job the American media maggots won't. Fundamentally changing America, one diaper at a time. Here is, courtesy of the SHR Media Network, the bloviating Zeppelin.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Hour 1 is already gone. HMOG, Holy Mother of God. It's 9 o'clock, the witching hour. 3 more hours to go on the left coast, but on the right coast, it is in fact slightly past the witching hour. In Bolivia, it's 9:53 and 117 seconds. What's up with Bolivia? We were talking about racists. And I read a great article by Melanie Collette in Politichicks. What a great article and what true content that was. But wait, now, didn't I tell you that this was sort of the racist, leftist fucktard special tonight? Well, it is, because it's going to get even wackier than this, because that's what I do, and that's why you listen to me, and that's why you watch me on YouTube, and you watch my little thing here move up and down with the little globs of wax in the oil, if you're fascinated by such a thing. Here's an article from dailycaller.com. And remember, everyone, ESPN, a lot of sympathizers and apologists for Colin Kaepernick was saying, oh, it must be racism in the NFL because he can no longer get a job when he started this meme of he decided that he was going to sit down during the national anthem. And then a lot of other people picked it up and continued and ran with that particular political football, did they not? And they did. And lo and behold, Colin Kaepernick was let go from the San Francisco 49ers because he was such a great quarterback, wasn't he? I mean, he was winning, and more winning. And then after that, there was more winning for the San Francisco 49ers with Colin Kaepernick at the helm. What a great quarterback he was. What great stats he was, except that there's this article which says, Are you trying to say that's wrong? Ray Lewis reveals racist tweet by Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend lost him a job. Oh, wait, no. Are you trying to say, BZ, that the American media maggots, the leftist media, aren't telling you the whole truth about Colin Kaepernick and how racist all the owners in the NFL absolutely must be because they're not going to give him a job because he's black, of course. And there are so few blacks in the NFL in any event. Colin Kaepernick could have a job by now if it weren't for his girlfriend's racist tweet directed towards Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti, who's a white guy, and former star player Ray Lewis. Okay, the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are in Baltimore, predominantly a black area. And what do we know about Ray Lewis? Oh, that's right. Great defensive guy. Played for the Baltimore Ravens, and he's black too. Well, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Lewis joined Showtime's Inside the NFL on Tuesday night, where he said that the Ravens were hoping to finish a deal with Kaepernick before the tweet changed Bisciotti's mind. We were going to close the deal to sign him, Lewis said. Steve Bisciotti said, I want to hear Colin Kaepernick speak to let me know that he wants to play football. Lewis added, and it never happens because that picture comes up the next day. Really, what's that? Kaepernick's girlfriend, Nessa Diab, tweeted a photo comparing an image of Lewis hugging Bisciotti to a scene from Django Unchained, in which Samuel L. Jackson, who plays a loyal slave, is holding Leonardo DiCaprio, who plays a plantation and slave owner. And then, of course, she tweets it out, that photograph, the comparative photograph of Ray Lewis and the owner above, and the photograph of Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson below. Quote, his girl goes out and puts out this racist gesture and doesn't know we're in the back office about to try to get this guy signed, Lewis said. Steve Bisciotti has said to himself, how can you crucify Ray Lewis when Ray Lewis is the one calling for Colin Kaepernick? It seems that the Ravens still had a few things to work out between the team and Kaepernick before bringing him on, but it's safe to assume he would have at least had a shot at making the roster if it weren't for his girlfriend's tweet. And she happened to make it a racist tweet. Now, are you folks familiar with a guy named Albert Gillery? Because if you're not, you're going to become familiar with him. He happens to be a former Democrat, and he's a really ebullient black gentleman who one day decided, ding, I think I'll come over to the Republican side. And if you listen to this, you might have an idea as to why he decided that it was time to do so.
We've all been hearing a lot about so-called white privilege. The idea that white people in America have it much easier because of the color of their skin. It reminded me of an incident that happened a few days ago in the great Louisiana swamp. I met a man who had a Confederate battle flag tattooed on his arm right here. It's a beautiful tattoo. We had business dealings, successful, respectful. And after our business was over, I was standing over to the side and alone. And he came over and spoke to me. He looked me right in the eye. He said, I'm not a racist. I'm not prejudiced. I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body. The man with the Confederate tattoo explained to me that his great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War, and that by wearing this tattoo, he honors his great-great-granddaddy's service. He explained that in all of these generations, his family has never been wealthy. They could never have afforded a slave, even if they had wanted one, which they did not.
Stop. Do you think that aspect makes any difference whatsoever to a leftist at all? As in facts. Do you think these facts mean anything to a leftist at all? Of course not.
Family is one of the vast majority, the great majority of American white people who have never owned slaves. Every one of us recognizes wealth privilege. It is a privilege to be wealthy anywhere on planet Earth, no matter who you are or where you are. But wealth privilege is not white privilege. We ought to be ashamed of ourselves. We have let a few black and white people who want to divide us, who want to draw us apart. We've let them place the burden of slavery upon every white person from the north, the south, the east, the west, male or female, old or young. People who have never, whose families have never owned slaves, never had anything to do with slavery. We have placed that yoke of slavery, that burden of slavery upon all of them. So much so that to the point where now just plain hard-working Americans feel a need to sometimes defend their whiteness.
Stop. And that's the situation we're in today. And aided and abetted by whom, I would ask? Aided and abetted by what I term GOWPs, G-O-W-P, GOWPs, guilty, overeducated white people. Oh, by the way, shall I throw this in for good measure as well? These are the same people, GOWPs, who are going to be responsible for the flushing of Western civilization in Europe down that particular toilet.
This is America, free and filled with opportunity. That opportunity is available for each and every one of us. Try it. American privilege.
Then there was this article. I didn't see this coming at all. And it was Sunday. I didn't see it. Here's the article. I wouldn't have believed it hadn't someone actually sent this to me. And then I shipped it out on Twitter. This is from Cleveland.com. And the article goes like this. Browns players run out of tunnel, lock arms with police, military during national anthem. And for those not familiar, Browns, those are the Cleveland Browns, and that's a football team. Cleveland, Ohio. Browns players ran out of the tunnel on Sunday, yes, this past Sunday, prior to the game against the Steelers, accompanied by police, firefighters, and EMTs. They also stood together during the playing. Stood together during the playing of the national anthem, joined by ownership and team executives, and the Browns ran a video with the theme of unity prior to the anthem. That's what it's about, cornerback Jason McCourty said. We talked about protests to do things and protests to do that, and what we kind of did before the game of everybody coming together is the point of trying to make it equality for everyone. Everyone being it together, pointing to the issues and saying if we work together, we can fix those things. So I think that's what our video was about, and that's what our message was about. And the actions that we did, hopefully good can come from it, and other people can see it and see what's trying to come across. That's what kneeling and praying before the game in the preseason, that's what it was about. Throughout conversations and progress throughout it from that point to today is what we're able to come up with. You dishonor the NFL, Roger Goodall, and various other teams. You dishonor the American flag and the American spirit and American patriotism at your own peril. You're suffering the consequences. Let Cleveland be perhaps a guide to you. Stand up during the national anthem. Give a modicum of respect for the hundreds of thousands and in many of NFL's players, the millions of dollars that they make a year. Because after all, making millions of dollars if you happen to be a black player, that's so absolutely oppressive, is it not? But wait. I told you there'd be more, didn't I? Of course I told you there'd be more. Because I'm going to point this out. Now, this did happen a couple of weeks ago, but if you hadn't heard it, I need to emphasize it now because I'm continuing to move in a linear direction to go places and make points. Here's something about the insanity of ESPN and leftist news, because though this happened a week or so ago, there was something new that occurred with ESPN just this past, I think it was Monday night, was it not? Oh, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know where I'm going. But hold up that car wash there, young boys and girls, because I'm going to tune you into the buttery goodness that precedes this. So I'm going to present for you two stories before we go to that particular one. One that you'd swear wasn't true, but is true, and a story that isn't true, but leftist journalists insisted was. What? Yeah, well, you won't believe it either. First, the true story that you'd swear isn't true. Yeah, it's absolutely that over-the-top ridiculous. Now, this comes from FoxNews.com, but Fox News was not by any shadow the only presenter of this particular story. The headline is this: ESPN pulls Asian American announcer from Virginia football game because he has a Confederate general's name. If you heard about this, you're going, oh, BZ, yeah, I remember this now. In the wake of the events of Charlottesville, Virginia, ESPN decided to pull one of its announcers from calling a University of Virginia football game because his name is Robert Lee. Lee, an Asian American sportscaster who started with the network in 2016, was moved to a different game, quote, simply because of the coincidence of his name, ESPN said, referencing the Confederate general, Robert E. Lee. You can't write this.
I want to go to a Fox News alert. There are reports tonight that...
Oh, by the way, this is my favorite dude, Tucker Carlson, as if you couldn't tell.
ESPN has pulled a football announcer from an upcoming game because of his name, which is Robert Lee. The twist, Lee is an Asian man, not exactly your vision of an unreconstructed Confederate. Clay Travis is a journalist for Fox Sports, and he joins us tonight. Clay, thanks a lot for coming on tonight. So we saw this floating around the internet right before airtime, and my instinct was this has got to be a hoax because it's too crazy. So we wanted to speak to you directly. What do you know about this?
It's 100% true. And in fact, Tucker, ESPN has just issued a statement to me. If you want me to read it for you, I can do that. And the statement says as follows, and you may have it there to put on the screen as well. We collectively made the decision with Robert to switch games as the tragic events in Charlottesville were unfolding simply because of the coincidence of his name. In that moment, it felt right to all parties.
By the way, who were the parties that were making these decisions? You know, the NFL now, these days, is predominantly black, including black coaches, management, etc. Who made this decision at ESPN? Well, that's right, white management.
It's a shame that this is even a topic of conversation. We regret that who calls play-by-play for a football game has become an issue.
Stop. Who made it an issue?
Is there any indication of how it became an issue? That suggests that some group had complained about having an Asian man named Robert Lee call a game.
Right. I'm sure they received thousands and thousands and thousands of angry phone calls, all sorts of tweets, information and messages from Facebook while this was going on, because how heinous to have Robert Lee, an Asian, announce a sports event on ESPN.
Do they say a discussion mutual within the company? I think they sat down with him and contemplated whether it was going to be awkward for somebody to be named Robert Lee to appear on the show calling the game. I think it's a sign of how ridiculous and absurd society has become.
Oh, you're being kind, sir.
that they made the decision that it was the right move to do this.
By the way, the guy that's speaking is Clay Travis. He's from Fox News Radio.
As opposed to just allowing people out there to think, you know what? This guy's probably not a Robert E. Lee ancestor, given the fact that he's an Asian guy, and also that it's been, 150 some odd years since Robert E. Lee died.
Well, now, I don't think you can say unequivocally that Robert Lee's forebearers didn't own slaves, right? Because there's that slim possibility, however slight.
I think it's probably time we could get over it for a football game.
Yeah, there he is. There's a picture of him right there. That is not the man who commanded the armies of the Confederacy, just so you know. When you say they decided, do you know who would have made this decision? I mean, I'm assuming these are not 22-year-olds. These are executives?
Yeah, I think it was executive consultation with the Robert Lee himself. Now, I don't know who would have had the final call. I don't think it was necessarily a mandate. But I think this is kind of an indictment of ESPN in general, right? Because what you need in this situation is somebody to be a reasonable person and say, wait a minute, do we really think that the average viewer is going to make the connection between an Asian guy calling a game and the former leader of the Army of Northern Virginia in the Confederacy, in the Confederate Army? Do we really think this is a political statement that we're making? This makes it a bigger story than it ever would have been. For an hour, people maybe made jokes about how Robert E. Lee snuck back into Charlottesville despite the fact that he was controversial. Instead, now we're probably going to be talking about how absurd this decision is for ESPN.
And they did. And imagine what it would be like to be that particular sportscaster and everybody's pointing their finger at you, even though you had nothing to do with that decision, but you're going to take the brunt, and he took the brunt of a lot of crap because of ESPN's decision. Stupid, ignorant, naive decision.
For a couple of days, to be honest. And frankly, it's emblematic of the world we've become, that Onion headlines are even too ridiculous for real-life headlines now.
But it's also cruel, and there's a principle at stake. I mean, even if it was Robert E. Lee's great-grandson, he didn't do anything wrong, and you shouldn't punish people for something they didn't do. You shouldn't punish people because they look like someone else or sound like someone else. They're in a certain group. You should treat people as individuals. This is grotesque.
Those are called the sins of the father. Does that sound familiar?
Does this make you, I mean, amen. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to lecture, but it does feel like one of those moments where, man, maybe things really are coming apart. Maybe the adults are crazy.
Well, I think this is an important point to make about the sports media. I think there's a lot of discussion, Tucker, all the time about how liberal the political media is. Recent studies, you're going to be blown away by this.
Check this out, and you really will. This is astounding.
Do you know what percentage of people in the sports media voted for Donald Trump in this most recent election? 4%, Tucker. 96% of people voted against Donald Trump. This is how decisions like this get made. You have all these left-wing people sitting around saying, oh my God, we're going to offend somebody, and you don't have a reasonable, rational, middle-of-the-road person saying, wait a minute, are we really making the right decision here, or are we making this situation worse?
Rationality is out the door, particularly when it concerns ESPN, Disney, etc.
And making the country worse, because people are just going to look at this and say, what in the world has happened that a situation like this could occur?
That's exactly right. Clay, I was telling my producers, we cannot air this because it can't be real, and I just am grateful to you for confirming it. I'm serious, conclusively. Thanks a lot for coming on.
And that's what I said. That's what I said. This is a story that you're not going to believe is real, but it is. Yeah, precisely. ESPN believes its audience is so inherently daft, stupid, moronic, that it cannot possibly begin to readily differentiate between a young Asian sports commentator and a dead old Confederate Army Caucasoid general with a beard and long hair. And if you think that's wondrous, but wait, there's more. The American media maggots actually believed that on Tucker Carlson's show a little while ago, he was gravely serious. You remember the eclipse? Sure you do. If you were there, you maybe took a peek at it, the eclipse. I couldn't really see anything, and I didn't even really go outside. They believed, the American media maggots believed that on Tucker Carlson's show, near the eclipse date, that he was gravely serious when he said that President Trump was looking at the sun during the solar eclipse And it was, quote, perhaps the... Jesus. I'm actually going to read this. And Tucker Carlson said it was perhaps the most impressive thing any president has ever done.
Donald Trump on Monday during the solar eclipse did what everybody predicted Donald Trump would do Monday during the eclipse.
Okay, stop. This is a leftist who's reporting that story about Donald Trump looking directly at the eclipse. So that's why Donald Trump, after that, obviously is bumping into furniture these days.
Looked directly at it without any eye protection. Again, something that we all pretty much predicted, and, you know, after only about a solid week's worth of warning,
we predicted, the American media maggots predicted that Donald Trump would look directly at the sun during the eclipse. You remember those stories, don't you?
From scientists and doctors to make sure you wore eye protection. It was pretty obvious Donald Trump was going to do what he does, not listen to people who know better than him, and look directly at it several times before finally putting on his glasses. Now, believe it or not, Tucker Carlson on Fox News actually decided to talk, albeit briefly, about Donald Trump's decision. Take a look at what Tucker had to say.
Okay, now, ask yourself, do you think Tucker Carlson was serious when he said this?
Even the president saw it, but in a move that is not a complete surprise, he looked directly at the sun without any glasses. Perhaps the most impressive thing any president's ever done.
All right, let's start off by saying, very obvious to most of us.
Yeah, the qualifier, to most of us, parenthesis, but not all of us.
That Tucker Carlson, I guess, is being sarcastic, or that he is somehow joking.
I guess he's being sarcastic. I guess he's joking.
I do not believe Tucker Carlson was actually trying to say this was the most impressive thing a sitting U.S. president has ever done.
Oh, but wait, if you think he's starting to eschew it now, oh no, keep listening.
That being said, what an odd choice of words to make a joke out of it. The most impressive thing a president has ever done. When you start to think...
Because, why? Those are sinister, sinister words by Tucker Carlson. Sinister.
Think of it in those terms, it makes you wonder whether or not this man actually was joking. We have seen...
It makes you wonder if Tucker Carlson was joking.
Him defend some of the worst behavior of Donald Trump and try to deflect from the big stories about Donald Trump. So it wouldn't be a surprise if Tucker Carlson did come out and say, no, I was being totally serious.
It wouldn't be a surprise if Tucker Carlson said, yep, that's me. I was thankful that President Trump is such a god that he can look straight in the sun like a bad Chuck Norris joke.
100% that this was impressive. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and go ahead and assume that he wasn't being serious when he said that this was impressive. For those of you who may not know, a recent interview on Salon.com had a doctor explaining why it's so dangerous to look at the eclipse. It's because your eyes get used to the dark, your pupils dilate, suddenly sunlight comes back, and you can burn your eyes pretty severely, causing severe damage. Now, Donald Trump, again, this wasn't just a humorous incident of him not wearing the glasses.
Oh, okay, enough of this guy. I'm coming close to the bottom of the hour break. I'm going to read a couple of tweets, okay, because some of these tweets were real. Here's a guy named Nathan McDermott. And he tweeted out this: parody meets reality on Tucker Carlson. He looked at the sun without any glasses, perhaps the most impressive thing any president has done. Nathan McDermott, dude, you bit big time. Oh, by the way, Nathan works at CNN. Oh, here's another one. This is, this is going to be the last one until the break. Here's one from Claire Phipps, a tweet. Fox News Tucker Carlson, Trump watching eclipse without glasses, quote, perhaps the most impressive thing any president has ever done. Yeah, guess what? The UK's Claire Phipps at The Guardian also bit big time on that one. Oh, and I think I have more buttery goodness on this because I've got another quote coming up. Oh, yeah, leftist fucktardishness, let it come on.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
Hey, this is Mim from Freedom Fest, the world's largest gathering of free minds. Join your friends from SHR Media at the beautiful Paris Resort in Las Vegas, Nevada, July 19th through the 22nd for 3 amazing days of liberty-oriented discussion, investment advice, and the Anthem Film Festival. It's our big 10th anniversary, featuring keynote speaker William Shatner and Freedom Fest favorites, including Steve Forbes, Jim Rogers, Lee Edwards, David Boaz, Doug Casey, Dinesh D'Souza, John Stossel, Lisa Kennedy, Grover Norquist, Peter Schiff, and many more. Don't miss out. Register at freedomfest.com for $100 off the regular registration rate when you use the all-caps code SHR Media.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is the final segment already. It seems like it's been about 2.35 minutes since I started. And welcome back to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from studio number 75 on page 60 in the SHR Media studio itself, a mere, I guess, 2, maybe 3 miles at most from the veritable belly of the beast, the Bill Mill in Sacramento, California, where I am broadcasting currently behind enemy lines in occupied, what I call, Fornicalia. I was talking about the stupidity of ESPN and how ESPN thought it'd be a great idea to take Robert Lee off of announcing a sports game because that name resembled a Confederate general right after Charlottesville. And now I'm talking about how Tucker Carlson clearly said that President Trump had godlike powers by looking directly at the sun. And I made fun of a couple of media folks. The last was Claire Phipps, who clearly bought into what Tucker Carlson said. Then there was somebody named Brooke Binkowski. And Brooke Binkowski wrote, and this is a direct quote, Brooke Binkowski wrote, quote, "This is not satire. This is not satire. This is not satire." That's her specific tweet. That's exactly what she said in that very specific tweet. At least the bald guy in that particular video had at least a semblance of a clue, the one that I played for you earlier. But here's Tucker Carlson revealing everything. as he speaks with one of my other favorite guys about that eclipse joke. This happens to be Greg Gutfeld.
Yesterday on the show, we had a brief segment about the solar eclipse that crossed America and the pandemonium it inspired. We ended by mentioning that President Trump had ignored countless warnings from NASA and health officials and gazed directly at the sun without special glasses or eye protection of any kind. It was, and we noted at the time, a watershed event in American history. Even the president saw it, but in a move that is not a complete surprise, he looked directly at the sun without any glasses. Perhaps the most impressive thing any president's ever done.
Right.
So there you had the President of the United States beating the very axis of the solar system in a staring contest. Top that, Louisiana Purchase, Emancipation Proclamation, Norman.
Like I said, this is just like a bad Chuck Norris joke. That's why they're called the Chuck Norris jokes.
Indian invasion, interstate highway system. You can't. Because as we said, it's the single most impressive thing a president has ever achieved. Now, luckily, many in the media were watching last night, and they instantly understood that we were not kidding at all. There was no irony or sarcastic inflection in what we said, because we're every bit as self-serious and humor deficient as any Washington journalist, and probably almost as dumb. We were, indeed, lavishing praise on a politician for staring at the sun.
Thank God the truth is out.
Nathan McDermott of CNN understood that immediately and provided video to silence doubters who suspected we might be joking. Claire Phipps of The Guardian wasn't fooled either, as she explained at length to her readers, nor writers at HuffPo, Mediaite, or GQ, all of whom wrote pieces about it. Brooke Binkowski, the managing editor of Snopes.com, went on Twitter to assure the public that, quote,
Wait. She's the manager of Snopes, and she says this is real? I think that tells you all you need to know about Snopes. Never, ever, ever, ever go to Snopes.com if you want anything factual that isn't leftist inventishness. I just made that word up, bentishness. I like that one.
This is not satire. This is not satire. This is not satire.
And she manages Snopes because it's not satire.
Well, given that Snopes is one of a handful of outlets working with Facebook to decide what stories are, quote, fake news and...
Ooh, hey, sounds like a lot of power for a really ignorant bint, doesn't it?
...should be suppressed. It's impressive that Binkowski was able to know the truth without even bothering to contact us to check, because that's journalism. Speaking of journalism, it is time for a Fox News alert. Lost in the excitement over yesterday's remarkable sun-staring feat were several other pieces of Donald Trump-related news, and we'd like to bring those to you now. We will speak slowly for the benefit of those Washington-based journalists who might be watching tonight. First, the National Institutes of Health has announced that Donald Trump's tears can cure human disease.
Did you know that? Well, you do now.
Unfortunately for science, Donald Trump has never once cried.
I swear to God, you could insert the name Chuck Norris.
Meanwhile, Apple says it has designed a new presidential version of its popular iPhone. This model comes with no backspace button because Donald Trump does not make mistakes. Nor does the device have a clock, since Donald Trump decides what time it is. Also, some sad news to tell you tonight. While golfing at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida last week, President Trump was bitten by an exotic and deadly Eurasian pit viper. Unfortunately, after 5 excruciating days, the snake has died. We're going to leave it to licensed journalists to decide whether those are actual Donald Trump stories or whether they're Chuck Norris jokes. On that
Oh, he let the cat out of the bag, Tucker. God dang.
note, we want to take you to Fox's Greg Gutfeld for more news that reporters will believe about Donald Trump. Greg?
Well, you know, I can see why journalists were confused, because I'm with you. Donald Trump isn't just the greatest president ever. He's the greatest president that will ever be. There will never be a president better than him. So there's no point in actually having another president. That's my opinion. In fact, I think I've heard that the UN is actually considering naming him president of the universe.
Sure. Why not another FDR, right? Why?
This is all good.
Why not?
To happen. I predict it.
Would you name every one of your children after him?
Yes, very much so.
Okay.
I've named all my ferrets and all my reptiles after him. You know what? Here's the issue with these reporters. They have two choices. So if they thought you were actually serious, then they admit that they're stupid. But if they knew you were kidding and still pretended that you were serious, then they're dishonest partisan hacks. So they have to choose. Are they stupid or are they dishonest partisan hacks?
Oh, I disagree, Greg. They can be both.
Yes,
and they are.
Yes, exactly.
The funny thing is, I mean, it wasn't in the teleprompter. I just thought it was a hilarious picture of the president staring at the sun. I was just joking.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of lighthearted. No, there I was sniffing his throne.
You expose the preconceived assumptions of these reporters. It creates blind spots. Literally, it's just like an eclipse. It creates blind spots, so they can't see an obvious joke. They wanted what you said to be real, so much so that they were willing to lie about it.
How sad is that? And actually, Greg Gutfeld just made a truthful statement there. Very sad.
That they actually, it's the worst part of a young reporter, and you've dealt with reporters, as you were an editor, I was an editor. When they want something to be right, they make mistakes. Right. They're like too busy. If you like, I worked in health journalism. Somebody will write about a terrible product because they want it to work. They want it to work, and so they will ignore the research. In this case, they just wanted you to be a sycophant. They wanted you to be what they think you are. So that's why they chose to report it that way.
Well, that's the story of wind power, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they've been covering that like it works for decades.
Yes.
No, you're right. And look, as an editor, and you know this, you know, your reporters sometimes go over the line. They write dumb things. Sometimes they're wrong. But the one thing, the red flag for an editor is emotional involvement. If a reporter is too intense about a subject, you can't write about your own mom, for example. Right. Because you can't have critical distance from it. Yeah. I don't understand where the editors are. If you hate Trump, if you think Trump is Pol Pot, you know, you're entitled to your opinion, but you shouldn't be covering him.
Yeah, exactly. It makes them, it's amazing. Like, if they actually believe that, how naive are these people that they would actually believe that that was serious, that they didn't see, they just ran and they typed away. And I'm a little disappointed because some of those people, they're not stupid. You know, I mean, I know some of those writers, and I'm like, what are you thinking?
Oh, wait. Are you trying to tell me that journalists aren't stupid and that they have lots of integrity and they can always suss out a serious story all the time, right? Isn't that true? That reporters, they know when their leg is being pulled, don't they? And they'll tell you immediately. Because if it's on the teleprompter, it must be true,
determine the
right?
cause of death and whether she was already dead when the truck hit her. We have new information now also on the plane crash. KTVU has just learned the names of the 4 pilots who were on board the flight. They are Captain Sum Ting Wong, Wee Tu Lo, Ho Lee Fook, and Bang Ding Ao. The NTSB has confirmed these are the names of the pilots on board Flight 214 when it crashed. We are working to determine exactly what roles each of them played during the landing on Saturday.
Right. What role did a pilot play on landing on Saturday? Oh, can I get back to you on that? I guess I'm going to have to. Just as the humorless leftists have time and again proven themselves bereft of facts, much less compassion, okay? They continue to subvert America hand in bloody hand with the American media maggots, Antifa, anarchists, and the willing complicity of Democrats. I've said before and continue to say, you can't write this shite. And so you understand what I said. I'm going to tell you a story that's true, but you're not going to believe it. And I'm going to tell you a story that isn't true that the American media maggots said was true. Still, the left-embracing American media maggots fundamentally cannot believe anyone would deign to possess the temerity to label them fake news, right? As they simultaneously bleed cash, readers, advertising, and leftist journalistas themselves. I wonder why the American media maggots just don't dare to speak about the heinous slashing cuts that are occurring and have been occurring and will continue to occur in the future all across the fruited plain, and the fact that their ponderous corporations pay for that shite. I say give the governor a harumph, right?
We must do something about this immediately! 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 Harumph! 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 I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. Give the governor a harumph. Harumph! You watch your ass.
That's because they got to keep their phony baloney jobs. So I'm leading up to this. This is a great story. Another ESPN story. It occurred this past Monday, last night, on Monday Night Football. Now, this comes from the New York Post. And the headline is this: ESPN sideline reporter melts down on Monday Night Football. Now, just what does a Monday Night Football reporter melting down sound like? Now, you tell me if this guy sounds really professional or if he sounds like he just walked out of the stands. I'll leave it up to you to decide.
It's a pleasure to be with you guys here on the field from up close, just watching Coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. This diversity in his background is helping him a lot tonight.
This diversity in his background on the Denver Broncos is helping him out tonight.
Quarterback at Colorado, defensive back in the NFL, and here he is having the time of his life.
Then the tweets went out right after that, and a lot of them were like this: there's no way this guy actually works for ESPN. Well, the guy's name is Sergio Dipp, D-I-P-P. And when that country dude used to say, "Are you ready for some football?" This guy was not ready for some football. The debut of ESPN's newest Monday Night Football sideline reporter lit up social media as he nervously stumbled and bumbled his way through the first report late in the first quarter of the Chargers-Broncos game. The 29-year-old Dipp, who mainly appears on ESPN Deportes, which is a Mexican channel, joined play-by-play announcer Beth Mowins, the first woman to call an NFL regular season game since 1987, and rookie color commentator Rex Ryan, the former Jets and Bills coach, on the broadcast. Now, when his turn came, Dipp started his report by saying how happy he was to be with them here on the field from up close, just watching Broncos coach Vance Joseph from here. You watch him now on the screen. Well, that's some insightful shite, is it not? Of course it is. Dipp, who has worked with ESPN since 2013, went on to speak about how the diversity in the first-year coach's background, Division I quarterback and a defensive back in the NFL, is helping him. And here he is, having the time of his life this night, making his head coaching debut, said the obviously excited Dipp. Twitter exploded after that with a mix of tweets questioning why Dipp was on the broadcast itself and others eagerly anticipating his next appearance. Dipp took all the attention in stride, tweeting a screenshot of a Google search for how to deal with fame. So what you did is you took this guy who has little, if any, experience. ESPN decided that they were going to expose him to media, and because he wasn't ready for primetime television, they decided they were going to, in the name of diversity, expose him to being stupid, because that's exactly what he sounded like on the air. This is not a reflection of him. It's more a reflection of ESPN and their decision to put a guy like this, inexperienced, who obviously needs sprucing up. And that's not to say that you couldn't make a good commentator out of him, but sure as shite not at this point. But it goes back to, this is what leftists want. This is what ESPN wants. This is what the NFL wants. The tweets continued, waiting for the next sideline report from Sergio Dipp, like, who is Sergio Dipp and who gave him permission to talk on national television? Well, guess who? ESPN did. When it's been like 2 hours and Sergio Dipp hasn't been on your TV. So they made fun of him. But who placed him there? ESPN. Why? Because of Gaups. Absolute Gaups. Now, I'm going to have to go back to a particular theme that I opened the entire show with because I think this applies fully.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
And here's a happy story for you. This is from thehill.com. Clinton, I am done with being a candidate. Former Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton and author, I'm sure she wrote all of that book, What Happened, by herself, said in an interview broadcast Sunday that while she is done being a candidate, she's not leaving politics. Jane Pauley asked this question, is your political career over? On CBS Sunday Morning. Yes, Clinton responded. As an active politician, it's over. And with that, a massive collective sigh erupted all across the United States of America. Thank God. There are some good topics. There is some good news. When there is, I try to bring it to you as much as humanly possible. Now, from the WashingtonExaminer.com, here's an editorial from the opinions. It's by Justin Haskins. It says, shame on the FBI, because we were talking about Hillary Clinton there for a moment, weren't we? Yes, we were. Shame on the FBI for dropping Hillary Clinton's email scandal. The mainstream media has bombarded America for a year with stories about the alleged collusion between Trump campaign officials and the Russian government, which supposedly gave hacked emails to WikiLeaks in a coordinated effort to destroy Hillary Clinton in return for some unknown favor. After 8 months of government leaks, including from top intelligence agencies and countless investigations from the press and Democrats in Congress, we still have no evidence of any collusion. There's evidence the Russian government wanted Donald Trump to win the election. There's evidence I don't believe there's evidence there for that. Because what did Donald Trump do? Oh, that's right. He dropped some bombs and kind of embarrassed Russia in Syria. Remember that? I do. With the little Moab, or the newest Moab, I should say. There's evidence the Russian government wanted Donald Trump to win the election. No. There's evidence some in the Trump camp, notably Donald Trump Jr., were at least willing to consider working with the Russian government. Only a stupid attorney because they wanted to get smut on Hillary Clinton. Hello. Earth 2 interviewer. Hello. There's even evidence Trump had been working on a business deal in Russia while running for president. Not sure of that either. But after the thousands of hours of investigating, there's still no evidence of collusion, and WikiLeaks continues to say, as it has all along, that it did not receive the Democrat National Committee emails it released from the Russians. But he writes, there is, however, a massive story involving a 2016 presidential candidate who violated federal law that has plenty of supporting evidence. The FBI's botched, perhaps deliberately. This is an amazing step when you have an actual journalist suggesting that the FBI botched an investigation purposely. The FBI's botched investigation of Clinton's illegal use of a private email server while she served as Secretary of State. And let's not forget what started that investigation in the first place, the countless lies told by the Obama administration in its attempt to cover up the 2012 Benghazi disaster. While most in the media continued to work tirelessly to pursue the next Russia-related leak, it's largely ignored the FBI's investigation of Clinton, which now looks more and more like it was an utterly corrupt endeavor from the start. And that's just the beginning. Got about 5 more minutes or so. I was very disappointed on Sunday to hear Steve Bannon say that he thought that Trump's firing of James Comey was one of the worst things that he'd ever done. I couldn't disagree with Steve Bannon more. Trump's mistake on January 20th was that he kept James Comey. You know, when I voted for Donald Trump, okay, I did so. I've said this before. I did so with my eyes wide open. My vote was cast mostly because he wasn't Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders. I also voted for Trump because I sensed that he would make a lot more sensible nominations for SCOTUS. First to replace Antonin Scalia, then to fill what I think. I think he's going to get at least another 2 potential spots to fill on SCOTUS. And so one of the first things that occurred is Trump made the announcement that FBI Director James Comey is going to stay on in the Trump administration. That was a terrible, terrible decision. And I only can hope that he regrets it, because Director Comey obviously allowed politics to intervene in critical decisions where politics should be the very, very last consideration. And the major point is Hillary Clinton, who thankfully is not going to be running for offices anymore. And make no mistake, journalists are starting to wake up to this. James Comey is a country-destroying weasel. First, for not recommending the prosecution of Hillary Clinton, and second, for not placing Hillary Clinton under oath or recording her in any fashion, though people say that that's the FBI's policy, and it was as I worked for them. But there's policy and then there's reality. When, let's see, she was interviewed on that July 4th weekend. I think that was back in, it was back in 2016. So the deal is there's no transcript of her interview. To me, it's quite clear. Very, very clear. The media maggots are starting to pick up on this. Former FBI Director James Comey has dishonored and absolutely dishonored his law enforcement oath, showing that he, in fact, has no fidelity, no bravery, and no integrity. And there's more, much more. Oh, there are more things that are going to be revealed. I hope that I'm able to cover them on Thursday. It's just about time to go. Folks, I've really enjoyed being here, obviously. The time went like 2.35 seconds. Boom, bum, bing, gone. In any event, you will hear me tomorrow night on the Sackheads radio show. Come back tomorrow night and listen. Also, Melanie Collette is on Monday through Friday. Money Talk with Melanie. Don't forget that Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, is on right before me, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the Sackheads will be on tomorrow night. Same bat time, same bat channel, right? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want to thank you very much from the squib of my little-hearted, clotted heart. Thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show right here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me? You can find me on Twitter @BZEP, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, and my official SHR Media email, bz@shrmedia.com. Send me funny cat pictures. My original intro music is by Possessed Tranquility at ReverbNation.com. Yes, I found where they are, and I'm going to bring them on the show because I want to interview them. Promotional consideration by Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works, and the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going, and tiaras are, of course, by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team with whom I will be consulting within the hour. You can bank on that one, boys and girls. Thank you ever so kindly for listening. Thank you for being in chat. Thank you for listening on podcast. You all take care. God bless. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.